So we are now 13 days away. Are the polls telling the truth? And what and where should the candidates really be focusing on?
Political analyst Wendy Patrick, Laura Fink, they join us with more. Ladies, good morning. Always good to see you.
Hey, good morning.
I love this. Where's the clock? This clock that's just ticking away. 13 days before you know it, we're going to be one day. I can't keep up with the polls. Every time I show up to work, one poll says something. I think yesterday, a few days ago, reported Trump was up, then Clinton is up. What is with these polls? Laura?
Well, I'll tell you what. I will read all the polls for you, Shali, because that's my hobby, and we'll leave you to normal life. But the polls, the trend line is what's really important, and we see a consistent trend toward Hillary Clinton. She is up by several points when you look at the aggregate, because any one poll can have flaws. Although, given the trajectory, when Donald Trump is coming out saying the polls are rigged, that all pollsters agree, Republican, Democratic, Independent, that is just simply not the case. While polls may not be perfectly accurate, they do tend to be representative of what's happening in the moment. And so Donald Trump remains in trouble and in jeopardy, not just in the aggregate of the national polls, but also in the specific swing states that he needs to win. So we're pretty close to where we were a week ago, pretty consistent as we had with 13 days left.
Right, but Wendy, I think I heard Trump saying yesterday that the polls are in his favor. That's what he said yesterday.
Well, I'm not sure what polls he's looking at, but I know that there are some to which he can look that have put him ahead in certain states. What I find interesting about this whole discussion is, remember what Donald Trump said in the primary? All he touted was the polls. We're winning, we're winning, we're winning. And now all we hear is, oh, you can't trust the polls, and we don't believe them. They're not representative. I have a bunch of stealth voters. Whatever way you look at it, there's two things that could happen between now and Election Day. I mean, that's for those that haven't already voted. Remember, a lot of states, they're already voting. You could have a lot of people fail to show up because they're Clinton supporters and they believe she has it in the bag, so they don't think their vote matters. And on the other hand, you could have some stealth Trump voters, those that do not disclose in the workplace or even among their closest friends that that's who they're going to vote for, but hold the kind of conservative values that dictate a vote of the Republican Party, regardless about who's at the top of the ticket. Raul and Charlie, what they look at is Donald Trump's going to be in the White House for 8 years at the most, but a Supreme Court justice whom he appoints will be there for life. So those are the only two dynamics that could skew the results of the straw polls that we've already taken and somehow end up with a Trump victory. Both are highly unlikely, though, to actually move the needle that much.
Here's what I don't get about the obsession with the polls. The polls, by definition, are not perfect in exact science. That's why they have a plus-minus margin of error.
No, we have become obsessed with the horse race, particularly in a presidential where we're not talking about issues a lot.
But exactly.
Yeah, so one of the things, though, that you can look at to see the validity of this polling or kind of where the race is at are early voting returns, which Wendy touched on. People are voting right now. And so far, early voting returns tend to trend Republican. Republicans tend to vote early. We Democrats vote a little bit later, head in toward the polls on Election Day. But early voting returns are showing Democratic overperformance. So Democrats are voting in higher numbers. They're outperforming their numbers in these swing states, which could mean trouble for Donald Trump. The other thing that could spell trouble, women. Women are voting. 53% of the electorate in Florida, for example, they're voting at 55%.
And they have record turnout already in the early voting in Florida.
That's right.
Both of them are in Florida today, right?
Absolutely. And Florida is a battleground because the polls have vacillated a little bit, but the early voting returns are showing pretty positive for Hillary Clinton. That means Donald Trump really has to dig in because, remember, it's a must-win for him, and really it could spell the death knell if Hillary is able to overtake it because some of the other swing states look unreachable at this point.
Let me say one thing about Florida, since you mentioned they're both there, and you also mentioned Trump, of course, is going to go back to D.C. for the hotel grand opening. But in Florida, we've seen a dynamic that's very fascinating. We saw about, 50 people show up for a cane rally where Donald Trump continues to have tens of thousands of people at his rally, and you wonder to yourself, why is that? Why do we have the polls looking one way and you look at the actual turnout another? One of the things that's coming into play right now is the issues that really matter to Americans. Healthcare. Remember, it's the Obamacare slam is what really Trump has been on the last couple of days. Education is another one. I'll mention this because Raul and Shelley, you look like you're going to the prom with the way you coordinated your outfits today. You look at so education, whether it's middle school, high school, how How affordable are we making our colleges? Things like national security. So we're back to the basic issues that matter to Americans. We're done with the sideshows. In fact, many people don't care as much about the WikiLeaks dumps or the allegations against Trump as they do about their own families, their own children, and that kind of success.
So the bottom line
that's
here,
what they're concerned about.
So the bottom line, how do you analyze, if you will, those big turnouts when you see the poll numbers and then you realize there's 10,000 people at every Trump rally? Because he uses that to say, look at all the people who support me. So does that not translate into the pollsters, and does it not translate when they vote?
Raul, paging Bernie Sanders, because he had rallies like that too and wasn't able to pull it off at the ballot box. I think the same thing is happening. I think what it does show is the tremendous passion and drive behind the Trump supporters. But how many in number they are, that remains to be seen. Right now, the polls show that he's not clearing 40%, so that's problematic. But to address Wendy's point, Wendy, I love you, but I think that was debunked, that 50 people at a Tim Kaine rally. You know, we all know he's not electric, he's no Frank Sinatra, but in fact, I think that one's been debunked. But it is true that Trump does tend to command these presences. But again, it's the passion of those individual supporters that want to show up. And the other piece that's missing is really the infrastructure. Right now, Hillary has hundreds of campaign staff in the swing states. With the RNC pulling out from Trump, pulling resources, that means he won't have the same ground game. That ground game may be a yawn to talk about on air, but it will be what makes the difference in a close race. So that is also worrisome for Donald Trump as he heads into Election Day. That's a lot of eggs in the rally basket.
Did you guys get your early voter ballots yet?
We got it with all 2 pages.
Did you guys already vote? I'm just curious.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we all vote absentee, and you know, the great question, by the way, that is a valid news story. I double checked it, but we don't even have to look at who shows up to a Kaine rally, because I can understand many people wouldn't show up for Kaine that would show up for Clinton. People don't show up for Clinton rallies often in the numbers, and they turn out for Trump. So are they all voting absentee? Have they already voted? These are some of the questions that make it almost impossible to see whether or not the polls actually reflect what's going to happen, which is why we have to keep talking about this for 13 more days, as if it's the hardest contest we've ever seen.
Yeah. And 45 minutes and 35 seconds.
That's
But
right.
who's
33
counting?
seconds now.
Oh, I look forward to doing the math with everybody. I know we're getting together on election morning, the morning after.
All morning.
Laura, Wendy, always a pleasure.
All right. Thanks,
Thank
Raul.
you.
Thanks,
Next
Holly.
time, bring coffee.
Raul.
Just saying. Just a suggestion. No? Okay, thank you.